Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you both for participating. We consider this important and very illuminating for Broward County voters. And thanks again for filling out the questionnaire. Let me start with you, Stephen Julian.
Yes, sir.
And ask you what is it specifically you would bring to the Broward County School Board that is lacking today?
I think there's a few things realistically. One being my full-time effort. Before deciding to make the run for school board, I left the position I was with the company that I was working with. This will be my full-time job. I know it's labeled as a part-time technically, but I will be every day either visiting schools, working with the board members, meeting teachers, school bus drivers, cafeteria women, and principals. The key, I believe, on this board is really getting to know everyone that is within the process. For me, my education was psychology with a master's program at Nova Southeastern University, my experience in business for the past decade, and my business degree really put me in a place where I can understand the needs of the children, the parents, and teachers emotionally, as well as the finances of the school system. And I believe that's something that I uniquely have.
Tell us specifically about your business background, what exactly you've done and how that fits into the mosaic here.
Absolutely. Business-wise, I started in college working for LA Fitness. I worked with them for several years, ended up running a few of their gyms for this position was called fitness director. I was running the management style of the gyms, employing each gym. I had about 15 to 16 people underneath me. After that, I made the switch into surgical sales for a company called Red Medical, where we sold Arthrex surgical implements, which was an interesting process. It was a large learning curve, kind of like the school board will be, because I took the first step into a field without the anatomy aspect of the education. So I had to learn on the job the ins and outs of surgery, which is no easy task. But I did that for a year and made the switch over to Southern Glazers Wine and Spirits, where I was at for the past 9 years. And I spent the time really sticking with them and providing for my wife to finish with med school and residency. And now that she's done, it really allotted me the opportunity to do something that I'm passionate about, which is one, finishing this master's, which will be doing in less than a year, and helping out the community that I'm born and raised in.
Okay, very good. Merrick Lewin, the same question to you, sir. Tell us what you'd bring to the Broward County School Board that's lacking.
Absolutely. Well, first, I can tell you that I personally deeply care about the success of the school district. I have a son who in a few years will be going to Broward County Public Schools. My wife is a high school counselor for the last 10 years. And, every day she brings home the ups and downs of the district, the successes and failures of our students. But really, it's, to go a little bit with what Julian said, it's my business background. For the last 15 years almost, I've been a small business owner in the fields of advertising, real estate, and general business services, such as operations management, human resources, and accounting. Those real life experiences are what I'm going to bring to the board. For instance, just going back to one of the biggest problems in our community, the 2014 bond. I can tell you, because I've managed several construction projects. I'm building over 15 townhomes in Fort Lauderdale right now. When you come up with a plan and you do everything ahead of time, you can hit your budgets. When you change your mind several times, don't have an organized plan, continuously change the construction budget, you have delays. Those delays run into cost overruns. Nothing about it is inevitable. Nothing about what happened with the 2014 bond issue is inevitable. Someone needs to ask the questions beyond getting superficial answers from our school board. For instance, when the superintendent just did the reorganization, she told us, in order to get these jobs set, placed, talk to everyone, I don't have any time. I can't wait another week. I can't wait another month. I have to do this right now. Now, if someone from one of my companies told me that, and I truly did not have the time, I would say yes. And then the immediate next question would be, how did this happen? And how is it not going to happen again? I find numbers incorrect that we're given. I find superficial answers and no one really getting to the bottom and saying, okay, that's a nice answer. Come back with the in-depth report about what's going on with our school district. A lot of people have asked me, They
Okay.
said the school is very concerned about the referendum money, but we got over $800 million from the federal government for COVID. And every day I get asked, where did that money go? Those are the specifics that we need to get answers from the administration on
Okay.
what they're doing and when they're doing it. Thank you.
These superficial answers you're getting, are you talking about the superintendent and the administration, or the board members, or both?
I think the board members are getting superficial answers from the administration and from the superintendent, and they're not following up enough. I think everyone's trying to do their best job, but it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, you need results. And the people of our community need to trust those answers. Right now, there's an issue of transparency and accountability. The people in the public don't think resources are being spent and managed well, and they don't feel like they're getting answers to why that's happening.
Okay. Mr. Lewin, with your business background, the business services you provide, I assume, to private clients.
Yes, sir.
Give Dan Sweeney and I and Mr. Travis, give us a sense of who's your client base. I mean, and do you do business with companies that do business with the Broward County School District?
No, I don't do any business with any of the anyone who does business with the Broward County School District or any vendors, and that is something I'd be willing to commit to not doing as I serve on the board. But just to give a general idea, it's a broad base of businesses, lawyers, medical centers, basically any kind of organization. One of the things we do, accounting, human resources are pretty straightforward. We give people the tools to do those appropriately. Operations management. One example I have is I go into a large organization, I meet with the people at the top, and I say, what are your processes? And they say, oh, here they go. Here are all of our processes. I look at those. I then go to the people working on the floor closest to the work, and I say, hey, what are your processes? 9 times out of 10, those things don't match up. I want to know with our school board, when we set standards at the top, when we say this is what's going to happen, what is in place to make sure that's actually how things are happening? What is in place to make sure that people closest to the work know what they're supposed to do every day, what is expected from their superiors? That's the kind of work I do, and that's the kind of work I take to the school board.
Okay. Steve, Julian, as you know, a lot of the responsibilities of a school board member involves the school budget and the Florida Education Funding Program, FEFP. My question is, give us a quick explanation. Tell us what required local effort is as it relates to K through 12 funding of schools.
Required local effort. I'm not positive of the term of that term specifically. Could you help me out on what you're looking for?
I will, but let me just ask Mr. Lewin. Mr. Lewin, can you give us an explanation or a definition of what RLE, required local effort, is?
My understanding, but once again, I'm like Mr. Julian, I don't know specifically. I think that's the amount of money we put in from our citizens to go with the tax dollars from Tallahassee for funding of the schools.
Okay. Yes, I mean that's close. Required local effort is important because it is the millage rate determined not by any of you, but by the Florida legislature, and which basically orders Broward and every other county in the state to levy a property tax at a rate determined by politicians in Tallahassee to fund the local schools. And what's happened over time is the state's share of this overall pie has shrunk, and the share that local taxpayers have to pay has grown. So I just wanted to ask about that. I'm going to pause here and just.
Can I address that real quick?
Yes, go ahead.
Steve? Yeah, I think this is so vitally important. I'm used to working with a public budget. As the chairperson of the local nonprofit Take Stock in Broward, we get a portion of our funding in the state budget every year. I'm in Tallahassee every year arguing for that budget, and that's something I'm going to do with the school board. But also, we need to realize the origin of these problems. Marco Rubio sold out South Florida and other urban counties when they redid the cost of living expenses and how we're going to divvy up this money. There are structural issues that need to be worked on in Tallahassee to make it more fair between our urban communities and our rural communities in terms of funding. That's a fight that I'm willing to have, and that's a fight I'm going to take on.
Okay, you alluded there to Rubio when he was Speaker of the Florida House, and to something known as the district cost differential. Tell us what happened and tell us why Rubio did the wrong thing.
Well, I mean, I wasn't sitting there, but my understanding as part of the wheeling and dealing of Tallahassee, as part of gaining that speakership, the cost of living judgment for how much it costs to educate a child in some of our rural counties was changed to make it a little bit higher and lower the cost of living in our urban areas. And that changed the formula so that while we're each getting paid for how many students we have, the formula changed and we're getting less per student in South Florida and other urban areas. And I think that was a huge mistake because obviously it costs a lot more to educate someone in Broward County or Miami-Dade than it does in some of our smaller counties in the state.
Mr. Julian, do you want to address that same point that Mr. Lewin just discussed?
Yeah, I mean, I do believe that the financing and equity for our kids is very important. We need to make sure that the assets are being spread equally to the areas that need them. We have at-risk kids around Fort Lauderdale and Miami that need the extra help. I was a wrestling coach at Fort Lauderdale High School where I saw kids that didn't have, the school wouldn't provide money for uniforms, bags, matches, tournaments, filing fees. And it was up to us to do our own fundraising as coaches and donate our own salaries as coaches to the program to help grow the program for the kids. And we need to be able to take care of the kids that don't have the assets.
Okay. I'm going to pause here and just open the floor to my colleagues, Scott Travis and Dan Sweeney, for questions.
Yes, hi, thank you. Can you tell me if either one of you are students now, and if so, where do you attend and what are you studying?
Yes, sir. Currently, I am a student at Nova Southeastern University. I got my undergrad in business there 10 years ago, but I'm currently finishing my master's in clinical mental health counseling. In preparation for this campaign and for the respect for the time of this office, I dropped my course load down to one class a semester, which is half of a part-time schedule already. So time restraint wise, I'm doing one class and I'm loving the program. I'm learning an incredible wealth of knowledge in the mental health field.
Okay, and Mr. Lewin.
I left undergraduate 10 years ago or a little bit more than that, to start my businesses. Recently, I returned to undergraduate and finished my undergraduate degree at FAU. That was this past spring. Right now, I'm not in any school. I did sign up before I signed up to run for this election for law school at Nova. My priority is going to be first, my family as always, and second, the school board. If I cannot make my schedule work with it, I'm not going to be attending law school. I'm not attending law school because I need the degree or for my livelihood. I'm just attending because it's been a lifelong dream of mine, and the school district and my family would come first. So if there was a conflict, I would choose the school board. That's going to be my highest priority besides my family.
Yeah, because I was wondering, are there restrictions on for law students about how much time they can spend in activities such as
It's
this?
school to school. When this started up, I talked to a number of people, some state legislators and city council people who have done law school and run for office and been in office at the same time. I've also talked to the school about a part-time program. But like I said, I'm not going to law school for my livelihood or anything that I have to do. I'm doing it for myself. And if that's not something I could do at the same time as running and being on the school board, my priorities are clear. The school board comes first.
Okay, thank you. I'd also like to hear your comments about the current school board member in that seat, Lori Rich Levinson. Do you think she's done a good job? What would you do similar to her? What would you do differently?
I think the challenge with any of our school board members is that you need a coalition of 5 people to get everything done. I think Lori asks a lot of questions. I think her institutional history is important because sometimes that allows you to see some of the things that have been done before. But I think there have been mistakes on the school board. I think that there's a lack of transparency and communication with the public. And reality is perception. Perception is reality. And right now, our district has a lack of faith in the school board. I think Lori has done a decent job over her 12 years, but I think she realized it's time for a change. And I think that change has to involve more members holding the board accountable. And yeah, I would evaluate as her doing an overall good job, but I think the board in general has faced so many challenges that you're going to need a coalition of people. I really think the more people we can get from a diverse backgrounds and diverse experience will be better. We have great school board members that are former teachers. we need parents, we need administrators, and I think we need business people like ourselves to add to that team of experts.
Okay, Mr. Julian.
I've spoke with her recently, and we had a great conversation about some of the things she's done in the community. Her family's been instrumental in the success of our students for a very, very long time. Some of the things she's done with the debate programs, with higher education programs, with the arts, with the sciences, has been phenomenal. For me specifically, when I was in school, when I was younger, I was diagnosed with ADD, but I was also dyslexic, and school was difficult for me at a young age. The arts and athletics really provided me with an opportunity to feel accepted and successful in school. And I had, luckily, one teacher that really spent the time to help me learn how to learn for myself, the way I learn. And it turned my education around. I think the programs that she does with the after school activities that she's really championed on the board are saving lives. It's so easy for people to point out one or two areas where someone makes a mistake, or may not have made a decision that you like or respect. But what she did day by day, every day for 12 years, going to the schools, building these programs, that saves lives, because I can tell you it saved mine.
If I could, I just want to jump on one thing Stephen said, because he reminded me, and I don't want to miss it, and I want to congratulate her on it as well. I was a high school debater. I was graduated from Stoneman Douglas. I was a high school debater there. And that was just when we started the programs of taking the high school debate teams and working with the middle schools to establish teams at their schools as well. When I was at Douglas, we went to West Glades Middle once a month to help the kids there with debate. That is a program that, as Stephen said, Lori Rich Levinson has promoted tremendously, to where we have debate teams at almost every high school and middle school now. I just want to say, I think high school debate, Model UMs, are incredible programs. I wouldn't be a public speaker here before you today if not for high school debate teaching me those lessons. And also the lessons of management. By the time I became a junior and senior, the people on the team were heavily involved with planning debate trips, raising money for them. And you got a tremendous amount of experience and responsibility about putting those things together. But no, our debate programs across the district wouldn't be where they are today without Lori Rich Levinson. I'm really glad you pointed that out, Stephen.
Yeah, and I don't think it's just the debate; it's every aspect. I mean, we have
Absolutely.
robotics programs in our schools for engineering. We have new outlets that wouldn't be there without her work. So it's easy to get hung up on one or two decisions that are made, but I think all in all, she's done tremendous things for our school system.
Okay, we've had one of the big challenges. I guess there's two issues I wanted to ask you about related that have happened since COVID. One is that academic performance, there's some signs that there's a little bit of improvement in the most recent scores, but when you look at how it compares to pre-COVID, there's been a significant decline. And then there's also been a huge decline in students attending traditional Broward schools, either going to charter schools or vouchers or other places. Why do you see why do you feel like so many people are leaving the school district? What can you do to change it, and what can you do to kind of improve the trajectory on academics we've been seeing?
I think we need to first and foremost take care of the most needy kids. For me, I was not a good student as a child. 7th grade, I had a teacher that intervened in my life because she was able to have the time with the smaller class sizes. She was able to make a little bit more money. I went to American Heritage, the Academy program, because of the needs I had as a kid. And it really helped me because she had the time with a smaller class size. Between class, she would hold me for 15 minutes and we would discuss the course work. And I'm a verbal learner. And it helped me to understand how I can be successful and what I need to do to be successful. It's tough to get that individualized attention when you have classrooms that are packed to the gills with teachers that are underpaid and appreciated. It's hard when you have shorter periods between classes. There's too many kids falling between the cracks, and I think our parents in our community want to give every opportunity possible to their kids, and rightfully so. We need to be able to provide for them in the public school system an equally amazing education as you can get at any of our private schools.
I think that there are COVID problems, and I think there are long-term problems. I think we are still getting and adjusting back to normal from COVID. I've talked to many parents who just feel more comfortable with their children learning remotely now in other instances. I think we have structural problems. I think for some parents, schools the size of Cypress Bay, the size of Douglas, where you have 4,000 kids, it's just too big to get that personalized attention. They just don't, they feel like they're one lost in many. So anything we can do to more personalize the education of our students, to show them that we have different learning. That's the one thing that really the private schools and the charter schools advertise against our schools, is that they've got so many options. They can go so many different ways. And while we may not have the same funding as some of those schools, we can start prioritizing, giving principals and giving administrators the ability to make unique plans for the students, to find what works best for them. On the high school level, we have a lot of programs. They need to be promoted more. A lot of people are aware that you can come to high school and get a few extra college credits by doing a dual enrollment program. Not as many people are aware that our students can do dual enrollment programs with our trade and technical schools. So they can graduate with not just a high school diploma, but they can graduate with a trade degree so that they can go into the workforce right away without any debt, or they can go to college while also having a part-time job that makes a real amount of money that they could pay for school. We also have the ability for kids to graduate from school early. If they're ready to, we have the shorter degree requirements, that if they're shorter hour requirements, that if they're ready to take that on, they can get out and start their workforce, start college earlier. I think the key is showing that we can individualize the experience for our students. And one part of that is making the fight up to Tallahassee, getting the resources, also getting the lateral ability in our schools to change some of the programs and make them student specific. But I think we need to fight for those resources, but we also need to fight for the flexibility in our lesson plans. And that's something I'm always going to be fighting on the side of our teachers. Our teachers, with all the rules coming out of Tallahassee, they don't know what they can teach. They don't know what they can't teach. They don't know what they can talk about. They're afraid to make close relationships with their students and support them. We need to get clarity on what our teachers can do, and that will improve our school system and allow our teachers to work more closely with our students, all of them.
Okay. We're going to be getting a grand jury report, presumably coming out soon. My question for you is, how do you believe that corruption is a major problem in the school district? And if so, how would you address it?
I think we don't know yet if it's corruption or incompetence, but I don't see how it's something else. We have an issue, like I said, it goes back to communication and transparency. If we're just asking superficial questions and we get an answer like, oh, we had unforeseen events, this had to happen this time. When you get that 10 times in a row, it's not an unforeseen event anymore. It's disorganization. I feel like we need strong leadership on the board, and we need strong leadership coming from our superintendent. People need to put things forward about what they want done and how they want to achieve it, and then have the oversight. Like I said before, if you have a plan from the top and you have a completely different plan at the bottom where the work is being done, those areas with lack of accountability, lack of transparency, lack of sunlight is where incompetence and corruption is allowed to breed. If we were paying closer attention, these things would be caught before we get to a grand jury report. The truth is, we need in-depth knowledge. We need programs and policies and processes that show us what's going on throughout the district in real time.
Okay, Mr. Julian.
I do fully agree. Transparency and accountability is key in the process. I can't say that I have any idea what's going to come out on that investigation. I'm looking forward to reading it. I'm sure you guys are as well, to learn what's really happening within the system. We have to put in real guidelines, transparency, and make sure that we are giving sight to everything happening within the system. It's too easy to put something in the background, pretend something didn't happen, or just brush it under the rug in the current state. We need to really work together to make the information available to everybody. So that would be one of my biggest steps, is just to try to create transparency in everything I do on the board. And that's why, for me, putting my card on, or my cell phone number on every card I hand out to every parent, every teacher, every student I meet is key. My home address is on my mailers. You know, if you don't like what I'm doing, come talk to me. I'm happy to meet with you, happy to talk with you, because transparency is key. If we don't make ourselves available to the people we're serving, then the lack of trust is just going to happen. You don't trust who you don't know. My goal is to make sure everyone knows me personally and we can talk about their concerns.
And I
Okay.
think you have to, sorry.
Go
I was
ahead.
just gonna say, I think we have to model it at the top, like Stephen said, with transparency and communication, but also I think we need stronger ethics rules. I mean, we have people who are making these ridiculous deals and then going to work for vendors. I mean, we need ethics rules that could start at the top with the board, that we're not allowed to accept gifts from vendors, we're not allowed to do work with vendors, that we won't go to work for a vendor afterwards. I think those kind of ethics rules and pledges could set the tone that this is where we're moving going forward. And I'd be more than willing to sign on to that.
Okay, and I know you were asked this question on the questionnaire, but I'd like to hear kind of your thoughts about the performance of Superintendent Cartwright. Every school board member will at some point have to do an evaluation of her, but we also like to hear from candidates. How would you rate her? What have you seen as her strengths and weaknesses thus far?
Well, the number one thing I would say, it was the process that put her in the position, and I can't fully blame her for that. But I think trust and credibility with the community is the number one thing we need as a board right now. So when you have someone come out who says, I'm just going to do the temporary job, I'm not going to do the permanent job, and then signs up to do the permanent job, if they're the best person in the world, it still leaves the community with the problem of, well, did they just go with the person who was there? Why did she change her mind? She told us she was going to do this, and now this is happening. It starts off right on the wrong foot. As I said in the questionnaire, I think it's too early, but the things I'm going to be looking for are just like I said with the reorg. The superintendent came, she explained why the reorg needed to pass at that meeting, the challenges that were going to happen if it didn't. I thought that was true, that it would push back this process and we wouldn't have people in place if she didn't. But what happens the next day? Where is this is why this happened and here's why it won't happen again? Where's the follow through that says, the contrition as well? It says, I'm sorry this had to happen this way. This was the only way it had to happen. I want to make sure that that's not a pattern. I want to make sure that was truly just getting the things rolling at the beginning. And now we're in a more thorough, planned out place, because just like with the 2014 bond, when you're disorganized, when things aren't going on track, you run into cost overruns, you lose faith of the public, and then you're having to explain cost overruns and all of these issues. So I'd like to see a little bit more organization and strength from her. But that's something that's much easier to see while you're on the board and working with her, because I know not every conversation happens at the board meeting. But that's what I'd mainly like to see, that the issue we had with the reorganization was a one-off and is not a pattern.
Mr. Julian.
All in all, I think she's stepped into a position in a very difficult time. I think she's did a great job standing up for some of the needs of our kids. I fully agree with the mask mandate and how she stood up for it. We need to protect our kids on campus. If we can't protect our kids first and foremost, then we're failing as school board members. Fact. She stood up to Ron DeSantis, put the work in with that, made sure that we really went to school safe, which is key. I agree with Merick that we need to work on communication. She should have gotten ahead of it, understood the way it looks in public of the reassigning of faculty. And it should have been an open dialogue conversation before just doing it. Before, after, and we need to be able to allow the opportunity for people to voice their grievances about the situation. And she should be responsible to explain to them her process of making those decisions. All in all, though, I think she's done a fairly good job. And of course, like everyone, there's areas to improve, but I think she's doing well.
All right. Thank you for those detailed answers. Mr. Lewin, I believe that the Broward Teachers Union has endorsed Stephen Julian in this race. What should voters make of the fact that Mr. Julian has the endorsement of the Teachers Union?
Well, obviously I'm not in the membership deciding. I'm not on the committee that makes that vote. I respect their process and the fact that they chose Mr. Julian. I would just say that, I think my wife has been a BTU member for over 10 years, a school counselor in the school system. I'm very familiar with, through her, some of the challenges we face. And like I said, I run an educational nonprofit that works with pairing people in the community with students and giving them college scholarships when they graduate. I think all this experience sets me apart, but obviously the teachers came to a different decision, and I respect that.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Before the BTU made the decision to endorse Steve and Julian, did you have an opportunity to meet with the BTU leadership, and did they screen you and ask you questions about your platform and so forth?
Yes, they did.
Okay. Mr. Julian, as you know, the upcoming vote on the renewal and the expansion of the property tax for staff pay, for security, mental health, other things, the board made a decision to put it on the August 23rd ballot, the primary ballot, not the November general election. Was this the right decision by the school board to pick the primary for this vote?
I believe so. And I believe that in these primary elections, you have educated voters really taking the time to understand what is going on with everything on the ballot. There's a lot of misinformation and misunderstanding about what the money is going to. And I think that has been because of the lack of communication in the past and the lack of outreach. I think that's one area we can definitely improve on, is getting in front of the teachers, the parents, the staff of the schools, and really making it known with true transparency where each dollar is going. And I think that would alleviate a lot of that mistrust. But until then, having it for the early election it allows for the educated voter that really spends the time to do the research to make the right decision, because I do believe we absolutely need it. If we do not pay we don't have the ability to provide resources for our teachers, for our mental health professionals, for our campus security, we're going to see an exodus of teachers in our schools. Our property value is going to go down because we're not going to be able to, we're going to have lower school levels. We're not going to be able to bring in investment from outside states, from other companies, because they're not going to want to be in an area where we don't have a good school system. Our economy here in Broward County is completely built around our education system, and we need to be able to support the ones that provide that education.
Okay. Mr. Lewin, to you, please. Same question.
Yes,
would you have voted to put it on the August ballot instead of November?
I think there were a lot of reasons both ways. I don't know that they're more educated, but I definitely think the primary voters have more time than the general election voters. But I would say the last referendum was put on the August ballot. That's what they were going for. I think it's also, I don't think you can escape at least the perception that it's easier to get something passed on the August ballot, and that they think these dollars are incredibly important. As far as the referendum itself, I personally support it. I think we need additional resources going to our school. I think when we see what West Palm and Miami are doing, they're going to have the resources to offer competitive pay to their teachers, and we can't have an exodus of teachers to either one of those counties. But it does come back to communication. When I looked at the flyer the school board was sending out, I immediately thought the numbers looked off. I'm very familiar with our county tax rolls because like I said, I own a lot of property. And when I saw 177 million, it didn't make any sense to me. Lower on in small fine print on the flyer, I saw that they were including the charter money, so it came out to 227, which, as we all know, a mill would make that off of a budget, off of a value of about 227 billion, which I knew didn't match up with the roles of our county tax appraiser. And so I found it very confusing. I tried to contact the school to get more information. I talked to a couple other people, and I couldn't quite get to the bottom of this discrepancy. And I think a lot of people have questions like that. If you're going to come and ask for money, what is the exact dollar figure? Where did you get that dollar figure? Where are you projecting it from? And where exactly is it going to go? Right now, we just have the small breakdowns of 75% is going to go to our teachers, their mental health staff, and then our other staff, without a clear breakdown, which is going to incentives, which is going into pay. How are we going to be able to compete with Miami and Palm Beach County? I think people want the specifics because right now it's really tough. With inflation and other things going up, this is a real dollar figure for people to add on to their yearly tax bills. And I think people want to know that money is going to be spent wisely, what it was spent on, and they'd like to know where money was spent on in the past so they can know that this money can be managed well.
All right. Thanks for that. I would hasten to remind both you guys that both Palm Beach County and Miami-Dade are doing similar referendums for a similar school tax in their counties. They're both on the November ballot. Broward's an outlier. Broward has chosen to put this on a much lower turnout election that is dominated by Democratic voters. And even though the Sun Sentinel editorialized, our opinion is that the tax should be renewed and should be approved. This was not the best way. This is not the most. Mr. Lewin, you've talked a lot this morning about transparency and being straight with the voters. And for whatever reason, the Broward School Board wants this vote to be decided by a smaller universe of voters, not a bigger universe.
As I said, perception is everything, and even though they have their other reason, it's hard to get away from the perception that they put it on the election that had the best chance of passing.
Okay, fair enough. Go ahead, Dan Sweeney. Dan's got his hand up.
Yeah. Thanks. So I wanted to get both of your takes on the term limits for school board members, and also the bill that failed in the last legislative session to make school board races partisan instead of nonpartisan. What do you think of both of those ideas? Mr. Julian, let's start with you.
I think having a partisan aspect to our school board would be dangerous. It's not something, our kids' futures and our kids' education should not be something that is politically based. I think when things like that happen, especially what's coming down from Tallahassee already, with the Don't Say Gay bill, with the critical race theory blockage of education books, we're damaging our kids' educational abilities by not allowing them to be who they are and to learn the facts of everyday life. So I do not think politics have any place in our children's education, other than, as Merick had said, in a debate program after school, where you can debate topics that are of everyday life.
Okay, what about term limits?
Term limits? I'm all for term limits. I think I think we see, the chairperson that was in our district stepping down because at some point you're going to do the best you can and the most you can for the board. Let someone new with a new set of eyes in to take a new angle, to take a new approach. But I think it's important that we work with the people as we transition into that spot to learn what they've been doing and what they found to be successful, and continue on to grow and improve our education system.
Do you think the 12 years imposed by the legislature is about right?
I don't know enough about it yet to give you a true answer on that, and I wouldn't want to.
Okay, fair enough. Mr. Lewin, same questions. What do you think about term limits for school board members and the possibility that was raised, though not passed, in the legislature of making these races partisan?
I think it's scary, frankly, not the term limits, the partisanship, because first of all, as you said, it didn't pass, but it was put up. It wasn't the only thing put up. They wanted to remove salaries from all school board members so that only people with means could be on the school board. I think it all comes back to, we want people who really care about our schools. Once you introduce partisanship, you introduce a whole different set of issues, because you just have people trying to win primaries. Right now, we're all trying to explain what we do best for our students. And I think we could already see in so many ways over the past few years, the policies that Tallahassee has injected into our schools to make them more partisan. You can just see by some of the opponents in this race, not Mr. Julian, but some of the things that have become wildly partisan that have actually nothing to do with our schools, but are just partisan talking points. It is incredibly dangerous to let that infect our schools, just as it unfortunately infected every other aspect of our society. If we can't come together to work together for our children, I don't know what we can do together. There's nothing more important. And I think it has to stay nonpartisan. And I think we have to push back against some of the ideas coming from Tallahassee, like our school board members shouldn't be able to be paid, and other limits like that. Term limits, I actually think term limits are great. I think the 12 years, 3 terms is a pretty good number. I don't know how much the legislature always gets right, but I think that actually is a good idea. And I think you can see the practicality of it. First, let's talk about the downside. There might be a really talented, really great person that after 12 years, unfortunately, the term limits push out. But on the other side, you're going to constantly be rejuvenating who's on the board. You're going to be bringing in people with different expertise. And one thing that I think matters on the school board is we should always have people who are bringing in, who are parents of kids in the school district, who are parents with kids coming in soon, who are young families that are looking to grow soon, because there always has to be that touch. There always has to be that skin in the game. And if you're a family, if you're married, thinking of having kids soon, if you have kids in the district, you think about it. It's a lot more personal to you how the education of your children is going to go. And so I think all these things are important. And I think injecting partisanship would be a big mistake. But I do think the term limits are actually a great thing that will do wonders for our board over the next decades.
Okay, one follow-up just for you in particular. You yourself are a fairly significant fundraiser for the Democratic Party. You have you've contributed to a lot of candidates. You have your own PAC that's sent at least $25,000 to the Florida Democratic Party this month. How do you wear those separate hats, being a nonpartisan school board member and also being I don't want to say a major fundraiser, that is the idea of millions of dollars being sloshed around, but a fairly significant fundraiser for Florida Democrats at the same time.
Well, I believe in the policy. I mean, what those policies go way beyond our school district, but some of them are involved in our school district. I don't believe in getting right between our teachers and our students. I don't believe in some of the things like the Don't Say Gay bill. I mean, what's a teacher supposed to do when you have normal projects like a family tree? If a student has two moms or two dads, is the teacher supposed to not allow the student to participate? What about when everyone writes about their hero and their hero happens to be a transgender person? Do we not allow that? We see partisan politics injecting into the school district. I'm against that. I think education should be between a teacher and a student and the parents. Everyone has a role to play, but I don't think Tallahassee should have this deep a role to play in policy. But broadly, I line up with the Democratic Party. There's many issues outside of the school board where I deeply agree, and I'm going to support the people that I think are fighting for our community. But yes, I think it's different. I think those are my personal politics, but on the school board, it's all about fighting for our children, and fighting for the resources and fighting for the freedom for our teachers to be able to teach in the classrooms.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Mr. Julian, when's the last time you went to a school board meeting?
I haven't gone in person to any school board meetings. I've watched via recordings online, several, over the past 3 months. But prior to that, my focus has always been at the school level, whether it be coaching kids or on the education level of just helping children get through school to graduate and open up opportunities for them. As their coach, I did everything I could to get them to a point where they can receive scholarships to go to college. Most kids being first generation, whether it be from disadvantaged backgrounds or lower socioeconomic statuses, a lot of the kids are single parent. A lot of the kids don't have the finances to pay the money to go to these tournaments with the entry fees. So that was a big part of my focus, was providing for the kids that can't provide for themselves. And I was very, very, very lucky. And I've had a great opportunity when I was at Fort Lauderdale High School to be able to provide that for them. And I really got to say that was one of the highlights of my life, was really working with those kids.
Starting through to Jackson.
Tell us what you coached and at what grade level.
So I coached wrestling. I was a Division I wrestler for my first year of college. I went to Drexel University. I got a just shy of a full ride. I was like, come on, just give me the extra couple thousand so I can say it. But it was a great opportunity for me, but I got injured, and it was a career ender for me. And at the time, it was devastating. I really had a bit of a existential crisis, not really knowing who I was. I came back down, and I found myself in coaching. I found myself in developing young kids to be the best they can. And there's a lot that goes into coaching. It's not just the athletics. It's making sure their grades are high in order to be able to participate. Make sure that they're going to SAT, ACT tutoring so they can get the minimum mandatories or better in order to receive scholarships. As a coach, I think you're more than just a coach. You're a role model, you're a teacher, you're an advisor. And for a lot of the kids that were first generation attempting to go to college, I was a wealth of knowledge on how to do the process that the parents may not have had. So the years, it would have been on and off. I volunteered for 2 years. It was a paid employee for Fort Lauderdale High School for 1 year. I did some, depending on my schedule around work, I did some other work with some other schools in the area, just volunteering wise. but Fort
Okay.
Lauderdale was my home.
Okay. We're close to our maximum of time, but I do want to close with this one question for both of you. And I'll start with you, Mr. Lewin. And I'm going to ask you to keep your remarks to about 1 minute here, and that is this. Tell the voters of Broward, draw the sharpest distinction you can between yourself and your opponents, all of your opponents in this race, as to why you're the best candidate. Mr. Lewin, go.
I think it comes down to responsibility. I've run small businesses for almost 15 years. I've put my signature on the front of paychecks. I know what it means to be in charge, that at the end of the day, whatever happens, you have to make the decision. You have to make sure your employees get paid. Leading businesses taught me to be responsible for policy, for the outcomes of them. Also, leading a nonprofit. As the chairperson of Take Stock in Children for the last several years, I've seen, first of all, what it takes to work with Tallahassee to get appropriate funding. But also, I've seen what happens when we bring the community to help our students. Because, like I said, Take Stock in Children, it pairs members of the community with students. They meet every other week. And when the student graduates from the program, they get a 4-year scholarship to college. I have seen the power of a member of the community coming in, working with a student, first-generation college student, someone who doesn't have people in their lives who maybe are working several jobs, who are busy, someone else to care, someone else to be a role model, someone else to show them the way. I've seen the power of these programs. So what I want to do is I'm going to take all of my experience from business, all of my experience from nonprofit, all my experience working with Tallahassee, and put those skills to work for our community, for our families, for our teachers, and all of the staff at the school board. That's my commitment.
Okay. Thank you so much. Mr. Julian, you have the floor.
Thank you. I'm born and raised here in Broward County. I'm the youngest of 9 children, kind of a Brady Bunch style family. And I have 14 nieces and nephews. I know what they go through in school system. I've worked with Fort Lauderdale wrestling. You know, I've worked with kids on getting across the graduation stage. I've worked with the teachers and seen the stresses they have of everyday life. I've worked with the parents and seen how difficult it can be raising a kid through the public school system. I have the business background and the business acumen to understand the financial aspects of the education system. And I have the coaching experience and the mental health experience to help get them through and provide the mental health support that they need in the education system. I believe that I'm uniquely qualified to provide that in this race. I was hands-on with those children. I've had them going from freshman year through senior year and seen how they've grown and what they need. I hope to provide that for my kids as they go into the system. We're planning on having growing our family now. My wife and I got married 3 months ago in Costa Rica. It was beautiful, loved it. But we're home, and my wife's opening a medical office in Plantation. So we are here for good. We are a part of this community, and we want to prove it so that our kids have a beautiful place to grow up the way I did. Broward County is a part of who I am. It raised me, and I want to help raise it.
Okay.
Oh, and Steve, can I add? Thank you, Mr. Julian.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to see if I could. This is a question that I meant to ask some of the other candidates, and I didn't. Can you just name like who maybe your top 3 or 4 endorsements are from? If it's like 100, I don't want them all, but maybe some of the bigger ones.
Would you like me to go first?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, so I have BTU, Broward Teachers Union, which is great. The PBA, Police Benevolent Association, Broward. I got their endorsement just recently, and the fire union. You know, I'm being trusted by the people that we trust with our safety and our education. I want to work for them to really be able to provide a better future and the assets they need to keep us safe and to keep us educated.
Okay, Mr. Lewin.
Thank you. I would say property appraiser Marty Kiar, state attorney Harold Pryor, and Sarah Leonardi. You know, these community leaders have taught me so much about working for the community, putting them first, and of course, communication, always keeping open lines of communication with all of your constituents. And I appreciate their support so much.
Did the Broward Principals and Assistants Association endorse either of you?
They're not. They're doing their interviews next week.
Okay.
We'll be meeting with them on the 7th of July.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thanks for that question, Scott. Thanks for your participation, both candidates. Best of luck to you guys. We may follow up with one or both of you, but really appreciate your time today. Thanks so much.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Steve.
yours. Thanks so much.
Scott, Daniel.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Have a good one.
Bye. Bye.